Welcome back to my channel for a Sony G Master Macro episode. And this lens here in my hands is, in my humble opinion, the best macro lens you currently can buy on planet Earth. I'm talking about a G Master lens here. You see the G here on the lens body. Its focal length is 100mm and its widest open aperture is an f2.8. And this lens, my dear friends, subscribers, YouTube watchers, is the best macro lens I ever had in my hands. So I think it deserves a proper review. I've mounted it currently here on my Sony A1 Mark II. In this video, I will share with you all the specifications of this lens. We'll do a little bit of autofocus testing here in the studio because typically tele macro lenses are not very responsive when it comes to autofocus. And we'll go, of course, also into a proper photo shooting and hopefully achieve some nice results. I'm really looking forward to this episode. I was shooting this lens now for a couple of weeks, and I should say I'm deeply in love with it. Let's kick this off. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, support my work. Many thanks for that. All right, it's a while ago that Sony gave us a proper macro lens. And the last one I was shooting now for quite a while was the Sony G lens. It's an FE 90mm, not too heavy actually. Widest open is an f2.8, which is a typical widest open aperture for a tele macro lens. And this lens was brought to market, if I'm not mistaken, about 10 years back. I think it was announced somewhere in the first half of 2015, and then you could really purchase it in summer. And that is now 10 years back. So it took Sony a while to come up with the idea of giving us a new macro lens. But this lens here tops all the specifications of this one here from every angle and any perspective. And I think it was time that Sony dedicated some time in research and development to a proper macro lens. And the maximum magnification of this one here was a 1:1. The new one, the G Master lens, has a maximum magnification of 1.4, which is the first specification I want to share with you. So that is really cool. It means you actually can things magnify in a way that if they would have exactly the size of the sensor, they would not fit into the frame. And this is not the end of the story. It continues because you can also mount a 1.4 times or 2 times tele converter between the camera body and the lens, and then your magnification will go up accordingly. So in this case here, if I would mount, and maybe we do it later, the 2 times tele converter, I would actually increase my magnification from natively 1.4 to 2.8. And that is absolutely brilliant. Of course, it comes at an expense. You will have a very shallow depth of field and you will need to work with focus shifting and focus bracketing. So in terms of magnification, this is absolutely spectacular. Natively 1.4 with the tele converter 2 times, it's 2.8. And you go significantly beyond the usual 1:1 reproduction ratio, which is required for a proper macro lens. Well, maybe let's be careful here what's required and what's not required. But a lot of people think that macro lenses, true macro lenses, need to have at least a magnification ratio of 1:1. But if we look into the medium format camera camp, we find dedicated macro lenses with the title macro lens from Fuji and from Hasselblad, which have only a magnification of 0.5. I think we can take it for whatever it is. This definitely is a proper macro lens, and what it can do is spectacular. After sharing the magnification, let's quickly look at what we have here in terms of mechanical elements on the lens. We have here an autofocus, manual focus toggle switch. So currently it's in autofocus. Now it's in manual focus, back in autofocus. We have here an iris lock, and you need to think about that in the following way. You have here an aperture ring with beautiful clicks. Listen to that. But if you don't want the clicks, you can also deactivate them, in particular for videography. That's essential. So we go here to off. And then if I turn the aperture ring, it's beautifully silent. Listen to that. Wow, you don't hear anything because it's no longer clicking. Let's switch it back. And then we have the beautiful clicks. which is very nice, of course. And then there is a red capital A, which is the aperture automatic, and you need a little bit of a push to get in this mode. And in order to not accidentally switch back into a way of too much stop down aperture, you can actually lock it in this setting. And this is what the iris lock is for here. So if I push it, the aperture ring is locked, and I can not accidentally switch to an aperture of f22 or f16 if I actually trust that my camera figures out the correct aperture automatically. So that's what the iris lock is for. Let's switch it back, and then we can go to manual aperture. I never use this mode here. I always steer and control my aperture myself in a manual mode, of course. Then we have here at the side of the lens, we have the direct manual focus switch, and currently it's on. You can also switch it off and deactivate it. For those of you who are not Sony shooters, what means DMF, direct manual focus? It's a beautifully simple idea. It means if you have this switched on, the camera will still automatically focus, so you have autofocus capabilities, but the moment in time you grab the manual focus ring, it will actually allow you to override it and fine-tune. And think about this in a very simple way as the autofocus in the DMF mode doing the heavy lift, and you later can fine-tune manually via the focus ring, which is beautiful, of course. Then we have here some limitations for the focus range. Currently it's in full. Then we can switch here to 0.5 meter and infinity, and here for close-up distance 0.26 meter, which by the way is the minimum focusing distance of this lens, up to 0.7 meter. And then of course we have here optical image stabilization, so we have it on and off. And that is also useful. It combines the stabilization with the in-body image stabilization of the camera body. We have two customizable function buttons, one sitting conveniently here on the side of the lens. So if you hold the lens like this, you can with your thumb activate this. And we also have one which we can reach from the top. And then we have here the manual focus ring. So currently the lens is in autofocus mode here. You see this, and there is nothing moving here, but if you push it down, it actually moves the scale. And you see here is focus at infinity, and the near distance, the closest distance you have here, minimum focusing distance, is 0.26 meter. And here you actually achieve, which is engraved here in blue numbers, the maximum magnification of 1.4 to 1. If we are manually focusing, let's say at 0.5 meter, we are between a magnification of 1 to 3 and 1 to 5, which is 20%. And in this way, you also see on that scale here in the manual focus mode what your achievable magnification is if you shoot tiny little subjects with that macro lens. A couple of more specifications very quickly on the lens. We have here a weight of 646 grams. So that lens is, for a tele lens, not overly heavy. It's actually quite okay. 646 gram. We have here all in 17 lens elements in 13 groups. And we also have 11 aperture blades. Let me get the lens cap off for a moment. So 11 aperture blades means perfectly circular, very nice background lights in the bokeh, which is of course very nice. If you want to separate foreground from the background, it will be in particularly pleasant with 11 aperture blades. And we have a filter thread. If we look into the lens here, this one here, the filter thread is 67 millimeter. And that's basically all in terms of specifications what I want to share. I will now switch the camera on and show you a couple of things which I personally find interesting on the lens, and then we go into a proper macro shooting. The first live demonstration I want to quickly do here is an autofocus test, and I will focus on the background, then on Jennifer here in the foreground, then back on the background, and you will see for a tele macro lens this is super fast. So I think you can even use this macro lens here for sports and action. It's absolutely fabulous what Sony has implemented here. So have a look. Let's focus on the background. Here we go. Let's focus on Jennifer. Here we go. Background. Jennifer. Background. Jennifer. You see, this is super fast. Typically, it takes time until the motors of a tele macro lens move, and then finally you find focus. This here is sports and action speed. Look at that. Boom, boom. It's such a pleasure focusing with this lens. Look at that. Absolutely fantastic. So the focus speed here is fully leveraging the very capable, highly intelligent autofocus system of the Sony A1 Mark II. And in the same way also for the Sony A7R Mark V, for those of you who have that camera. The next live demonstration I want to do in this video is a proper macro shooting. And I will shoot that ring here. Is a ring with a lot of details that why I think it's worthwhile to show it here in this video. And I have actually to take some pictures of this ring anyway. In terms of lighting, I will use the Orbitvu AlphaShot Micro version 2 machine, which I just recently introduced on my channel. I'll post the link down below in the info box. If you have not seen that video, watch it. I think it's worthwhile to watch it to see what's possible today in terms of lighting, but also in terms of automated shooting. If you want to do that for jewelry, watches, product photography. And I will shoot the Sony in a tethered way via the Sony imaging software. And I will screen record what I'm doing on my MacBook, so you see live everything that's set up here on the camera and how the images play out. Okay, so here you see my workplace for the next few minutes. You see the Orbitvu Station AlphaShot Micro version 2. On the left-hand side on the table, you see my MacBook Pro. I'm already in tethered shooting mode in imaging edge, and I also have all the control elements for this machine here, where I can steer the LED panels in front of me. And I will switch now to screen recording in order to show you how this works. And as I said, if you have not seen my video about this fabulous machine here, I post a link down below in the info box. Look it up. That is really something I use with all kinds of cameras. It's tailor-made for Canon cameras, because then you can connect the camera with that port here in the machine and connect the machine to the MacBook Pro and have a fully fledged tethered setup. Here I'm using tethered shooting on the Sony A1 Mark II, and I steer with a separate software the LED panels inside that dome for the perfect lighting. But it works in the same way. Okay, let's go to work. All right, I'm on my MacBook Pro now. I'm screen recording live what I'm doing. I made my mouse pointer bigger again, like in a recent video, and it's neon green, so you will always find it. Not if you go into live view, because here you see this focus field, which I can place. And this here is Imaging Edge from Sony. It's the tethered shooting software they offer for free for Sony shooters. And here on the very right-hand side, I can steer my LED panels in the Orbitvu Station. I'm going to show that in a moment because I need to find the correct light. And going back here to the left-hand side to Imaging Edge, I can place now my focus field somewhere, and then I can autofocus, and it will update immediately. I also figured out the minimum focusing distance of 0.26 meter, and you see that ring is totally filling the frame now. It's just fitting in, so we have a magnification of 1.4 to 1, native magnification, which is insane, right? With a one-on-one magnification, the ring would conveniently and with space around fit into a 36 times 24 millimeter sensor area. But with a 1.4, it's making everything even bigger, magnifies more. And that's why the ring is now almost frame filling here, set in scene. Here on the right hand side, I have the steering panel for the different LEDs in the Orbitvu Station where I placed my ring. And I already fine-tuned this here because this is typically a longer process. But what I want to show you is I can steer these LEDs isolated and in this way achieve different lighting outcomes. And currently this ring is illuminated in the way I want it. But let me show you, for instance, on LED panel number 2, how this changes the lighting if I move that slider here. You see? And what you see if you look here, you get here more or less reflections and too dark or too bright spots if I overdo it. I was at 40. This is just balanced. Look at that. If I go higher, it gets overly bright. And if I go lower, there is not enough light. And that's the way how I steer these LED panels in order to get the lighting correct. There are different LED groups which I can steer in that way. Let me show you one more. Here is, for instance, panel number 4. If I push this up, the whole thing gets more illuminated here. And we could leave it like this, for instance. I had it down. I think here in this area, it gives a more homogeneous light if I push this up a little bit. Have a look here. I think probably 20 to 30 is a good value for that. Let's see. If I want to get more glimmer, more glow to the diamonds here on the front side of the ring, I just can push up here in the lower right-hand side corner the slider, and then you see how this changes. Look at that. This is, for instance, beautiful. It's actually almost by nature that you want to have some reflections here on the diamonds, that they become shiny. And I think this is good. This is off. This is good. This brings it some glow. I like it. And that's what we should probably do. And I have a live view here. I can autofocus. My focus field is placed here currently. This is what I believe the closest point to the camera. And I need now to make my way by shifting focus away from the camera towards infinity, but stop at the very end of the ring here, of course. And I will do this via manual focus now and take appropriate focus steps. I've stopped down the aperture here to an f11 and I dialed in a shutter speed of 1/30 seconds. I'm in fully manual mode. I also did choose here an ISO of 100. Which is probably good for a very clean image. And let's now start the sequence. Let me go here into manual focus, and we can check whether the focus is sitting correctly on that point by magnification. And I think this looks really good. We can keep it that way, and we take a first shot. Self-timer 2 seconds. That's the first one. Let's shift the focus, and let's see how far we get. Next shot. Let's shift again. Next shot. And this is probably not fine enough in terms of steps, what I'm doing here. I need to very likely take less rigorous steps here and move the focus along a more fine grid. Let's go back into autofocus here. And let's focus. Here we go. Let's check the focus. Yes, this looks good here in this area where I believe is the closest point to the camera. Let's go back. Let's switch into manual focus and let's make the steps smaller. Let's take another shot here. And now let's take the smaller step size here. You see this is moving. This is not moving enough, I guess. Let's give it 3 pushes. And then let's take another shot. Another 3 steps, another shot. And I don't want you to watch that because it's getting boring. 1, 2, 3. I'll just do that manual focus bracketing now and then stack the images together and then come back to the video. All right, let's have a crisp and interesting discussion about that ring here. And first of all, you see the focus stacking was successful. I did this in Helicon Focus. The ring is now sharp from the bottom of the frame to the top of the frame. And the level of detail this camera lens combination is delivering here is absolutely insane. As I said, this is very likely the best macro lens I ever had in my hands. Absolutely fabulous what you see here and the level of detail you get. Now, why is this an interesting image? Would you use this for marketing purposes? No, definitely not. If you want to do marketing for a ring like that as a secondary market dealer, you will not want to reveal all the scars, damages, scratches, all the signs and indications that this ring has been heavily worn, as you can see here. And let me quickly explain how this business works, because this is very interesting, because the same person might show 2 faces in the same transaction in one direction and the other direction. And first of all, the person who bought this from Piaget, this is a Piaget ring here, you see this. And by the way, here it's engraved. Here where you see the material, namely white gold, it's only printed. And by the way, sloppily printed, which is in line with what I told you guys on my recent Orbitvu video where we looked into a Cartier bracelet. The guy who bought this originally from Piaget paid significantly above the material value of the ring. And the material value is the sum of the value of the white gold here, the whole amount of white gold in gram you have, multiplied of course by the current quotation for white gold in the market, plus the value of the diamonds in carat. And the value you have is significantly lower from a material perspective than what you pay to the original luxury brand Piaget. Now, if the original client who bought this from Piaget wants to sell this to a secondary market dealer, they love these type of images, because what they do is they get the client in front of the computer, show a high-dimensional, high-resolution print like this on a big computer screen and tell them, look, this ring is so heavily worn, look at what's going on here, I cannot pay you significantly more than the gold value plus the diamond value. But then when they turn around and sell this ring back to another client, they will not show all the scars and all the marks and everything that's going on with that ring. They will just argue that this is a Piaget ring from a luxury brand and will collect a significant margin. That's the way this business works. And of course, you can make this picture a little more shiny and posh if you give it a different background, like here, put it in the universe. Give it some shiny background here, and then it looks much better. At the very end, this is a ring which is heavily worn and has a lot of marks, scars, scratches, and so on. And by the way, if you're interested to see how that business works, take a few minutes when you have time and go on YouTube and look for the bunch of large-scale influencers, actually, who post their videos from the Diamond District in New York, which is 47th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. And you will always pay significantly above the gold value plus the diamond value, because you pay the brand and the prestige, kind of the statement you make with that ring. And in the secondary market, then these guys, they have these two phases. They offer low if they buy from you, and they charge a lot if they sell to you. Simple like that. So that's a little side discussion here, which I personally find very interesting, but the level of detail, what this macro lens is delivering on a top-notch camera like the Sony A1 Mark II, and very likely also on the Sony A7R Mark V with an even higher resolution, this is absolutely insane and breathtaking. All right, so we saw if you go into deep macro photography, jewelry might not be as pretty as it looks when you just stick it on your finger, because you will detect a lot of scars and traces from the person who was wearing it, which is very natural, because scars on watches and scratches on watches and on jewelry, that's basically a sign that you are alive and you carry your jewelry and your watches with you. Now, what I also did, of course, because I want you to see that, is I mounted the 2x Tele Converter here from Sony. And this is a very nice Tele Converter. And as I mentioned already in the video, this boosts up the magnification from 1.4 times to 2.8 times. And in order to give you an idea about what this means, I took some photos of that tiny little ring here. And it's also a heavily used ring, but you have a smaragd here. And that smaragd with a 2.8 magnification will, in the vertical dimension, almost completely fill the frame. And I wanted to show you that so you get some idea what this lens is capable of. Again, you will see a lot of traces from wearing it, scars, you know, damage to the ring, but that's not what we are talking about here. What I really want to show you is the magnification and the maximum reproduction. What you need to be aware of course, is you lose 2 full stops here. So if I dial in on the aperturing of the lens in f8, it will actually come over as an f16. Because with heavy magnification here in a Tele Converter, you lose 1 full stop. So with 2x Tele Converter mounted, you lose 2 full stops on the aperture side, which gives here an f8 up to an f16. You see the full stops here, by the way. This is 1 full stop, another full stop is an f16, and that is what will happen. And I will use focus stacking on the camera this time, but will still use the Orbitvu Station for the lighting. And as said, you will see that this stone here, placed in this direction, is almost filling the vertical dimension of the frame, which is 24 millimeter. And that is absolutely amazing. So here's the image of the ring without the 2x Tele Converter. And here is the image of the ring placed on a little artificial stone with the 2x Tele Converter. And you also see this in the metadata. You see here in the second line in the upper left-hand side corner, there is no Tele Converter mentioned. And on the next image, you see actually that it says in the second line, plus 2x Tele Converter. And this is amazing. This is the magnification boost you get here and see here. And that's definitely what I wanted to show. Maybe also on the level of detail here, great. You see how heavily used and worn this ring here is. Look at that, many scars, scratches, and what have you. The stone itself is beautiful, but not the clearest and purest if you look at that. And if you have then the 2.8 magnification, you see even more of that, less from the ring in the way it gets sticky on the finger, but of course much more from the stone with its structure. The level of detail is great. Here, by the way, I got the lighting wrong. To be self-critical, these two reflections here in these two corners, they should not be there. I should have hexed them away with another LED panel in the Orbitvu Station. And that is the difference you get. And I think it's amazing that Sony enabled that feature, that with this anyway great macro lens with a 1.4 times magnification, you can double the magnification by mounting the 2 times Tele Converter from Sony, or the 1.4 times Tele Converter, which interpolates in the outcome then between this image and this image here. And maybe also here, you know, if you give it a background, it looks more posh, it looks better. You can place it in front of the mountains or in front of a big city, NYC, what have you. You always need to play with backgrounds if you want to use that image for marketing purposes, but these rings are so heavily used. If I would be a secondary market dealer, I would definitely use it to show the one who wants to sell it to me that this ring is really, really heavily worn. Okay, I'm not a secondary market dealer, and I don't want to be involved in that business. I'm just a photographer. But I think it's interesting to contemplate what's really going on here and how the connection is into that business. All right, that was a longer video, but it's also a very impressive lens. And I hope you liked it. I hope you have all the data points and you can decide then based on that if this G Master macro lens, brand new 100mm f2.8 widest open, is for you, or if you don't need it. Maybe a quick side tip. When I mounted the Tele Converter here, and I wanted to test my autofocus and get everything ready for the focus bracketing. Autofocus did not work, and the LCD here always showed me MF for manual focus. And what happened is, accidentally, I pulled down that ring. And when you pull down that ring, autofocus is blocked. It will not work. And since you do not really see it here, you need to be careful. Don't get frustrated if all of a sudden your autofocus on that macro lens is not working. First of all, check whether here autofocus is enabled, but even if it is enabled, you might still see here the symbol or icon for manual focus. And then check, did you not accidentally pull that ring towards the camera? And then the autofocus system is blocked and will not work. So you need to pull it up away from the camera, and then you're good to go. All right, that's all I wanted to say. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me a thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy. And of course, peace out.